Welcome everybody to today's webinar. Oh, we are excited. I think we're going to have a good one today. We're going to be talking about what lead generation methods are best for developing leads, creating pipeline, and driving brand awareness. Now, this is a research study that InsideSales.com recently published. By recent, I mean literally yesterday. 678 individuals in sales and marketing weighed in to talk about some of the important issues around sales and marketing. So I'm excited to jump in. Couple house cleaning items before we do, and I will promise I'll introduce our esteemed guest today. If you haven't already checked it out, you are missing out. The Sales Acceleration Podcast, it's awesome. We talk about real problems, real people, real solutions, all around the areas of demand generation, sales, and the sales operation. You can find that on iTunes or at InsideSales.com/podcast. Now, webinar is going to last about 45 minutes, depending on how much I probably talk. Feel free to use the hashtag InsideSalesWebinar, and we will make sure that we get this on demand if you want to pass it around. Now, last but not least, do want to make this interactive, would prefer to answer your questions rather than the random stuff that I sometimes come up with. So if you can, I want you to practice using your Q&A box. Go down to the bottom there, grab your Q&A, type your name and where you're from, just so I can get a feel as to who we have in the audience. Oh, we got some people coming already. Looks like we got Alan, Mike, Neela, Alan, Cameron. Thanks for joining, Cameron. Ken, Judith, fantastic. Okay, appreciate you guys jumping in. Yeah, Lee, Stephen, good. All right, guys, keep using the Q&A. Let's make this as interactive as possible. So let's introduce the speakers and presenters today. Again, I'm Gabe Larsen. I run what we call Inside Sales Labs. That's our research and best practice arena. I will be offended if you do not continue the conversation about this on LinkedIn or Twitter, so please do add us on there. Justin, you mind taking just a minute and introducing yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Gabe. I really appreciate it. My name is Justin Hiatt. I lead the business development or sales development organization here at InsideSales.com. Been here about a year. Prior to here, I ran global business development at HubSpot, and prior to HubSpot, business development at Oracle. So been in the BD realm for about 10 years, but never seen a study like this, so super excited to talk about it today.
Yeah, a lifer, man. You're becoming almost a lifer in sales development. I mean, that's you've got some real experience there. We're going to have to steal a little bit of that today. Jeff, can you take just a minute and tell us a little bit about you?
Absolutely. Thanks, Gabe. My name is Jeff Fowler. I work on the marketing side here at Inside Sales, so I come at it from a marketing angle. Background is full of history from a marketing perspective, both field and business-to-business type of marketing with digital, and also I have a little bit of a sales background that gives me the opportunity to carry a bag and manage a sales team in the field that we found success with. So I get an opportunity to look at both from a field and a sales perspective, but looking forward to a very healthy and lively conversation today.
Yeah, so let's get into it. And we're going to be just having a little bit of a conversation between myself, Justin, and Jeff, but I do want to give an introduction here as to a little bit of why we're even talking about this. So the following format, we're going to go a little bit into the why, and we want to touch on this idea of sales and marketing not getting along. I know it's a little cliche, but let's dive into it because we got some data about it now. Next, we're then going to say what did this study actually reveal about sales and marketing leaders' opinions on some of the top challenges, methods for driving leads, etc. And then lastly, we want to end with this how question. How can you take some of this info, apply it in your business, and actually make some money from it? So let's talk why first. So why are sales and marketing not getting along? I don't know if you saw this, you got Justin or Jeff, if you saw this. This is a couple years back. It actually came out from CSO Insights, but they did a study where they basically asked, it's so great, they asked some salespeople what they thought of marketing, and then they asked marketing what they thought of sales. So Justin, I'm going to put you on the spot. We got 3 words here: incompetent, cowboys, and simple-minded. Is that Do you think that's what salespeople thought of marketing, or what marketing people thought of sales?
I got to go with marketing thought of sales just because of the cowboy feedback, I think.
You nailed it. So those were common words used by marketing to describe salespeople. Again, this is a corporate executive board study. And then on the flip side, they talked about paper pushers, academics, and lastly, and Jeff, this one probably hurts the most, having played a little bit in marketing. The irrelevant one, I felt like, out of all the words that they used in the study for salespeople to describe marketing, irrelevant hurts the most. Do you agree, or am I off on that one?
No, you are spot on with that, Gabe. And I've had that conversation face to face with sales leaders in the past, so I can attest firsthand to that description.
Yeah. So guys, it's obviously we know this conversation, right? It happens. Heidi, appreciate we got Heidi saying some funny comments there. In the study, it was 87% of the words that were used were actually negative when sales was describing marketing, and then marketing was describing sales. Now, the way you bring these two together, and I don't know if this will actually play on the screen here, but my interpretation of the best way to get sales and marketing to play better together is to actually have them hug it out. You got to bring them together. You got to force them to work together. Once they start working together, magic can happen. So that's what we wanted to accomplish with this study. We wanted marketing and sales to hug it out. We wanted to ask some tough questions and get their opinions on key topics to see if we can't get that alignment flowing between sales and marketing. So let's dive into some of the findings of this study, and I want to get Justin and Jeff's opinion on some of this. Again, the study, you can find it at InsideSales.com research. We called it optimal lead generation methods, but it could have been called the truth of between sales and marketing, how great leaders are generating pipeline and creating leads. Again, 607, almost 700 sales and marketing leaders participated, and here are some of the results. So first one, some of the things they agreed on, and you're going to see this comparison, some of the things they agreed on and then what they disagreed on. So Jeff, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you think about sales and marketing, where do you think the biggest challenge, if I asked a marketing leader and a sales leader, what would they say the biggest challenge is in marketing?
In marketing, we would there would be something around a lead issue where we're not giving enough leads into the top of the funnel to help the sales team out on the bottom end of it.
You nailed it. So out of almost 50% of all sales and marketing leaders said, hey, look, it is. And that was, again, a place where they agreed. When we asked all of them, there was a combined effort that said generating more leads basically topped the barrel. Now, the truth is, if you look at that, number 2 and 3 jumped right down then into the quality of the leads. So you have this kind of this dual format. You got both the quantity and the quality. Justin, thoughts on this? I mean, that's probably potentially obvious. I mean, this is just it. It's the crux of the issue is the quantity and the quality of leads.
Yeah, I would just totally agree. I think Jeff was too nice. He kind of answered what sales would think of marketing. I think marketing would say that you're not converting our leads well enough. So I think that's the back and forth and a not common goal is where the issue lies. And if both groups are around generating a certain number of leads and having those leads be of certain quality, I think you're going to see sales and marketing align very tightly.
Yeah, interesting. So what about where did they disagree on challenges? So again, we asked everybody, what were their biggest challenges? Sales and marketing agreed the most on the quantity and quality of leads. When it comes to where they disagreed, I thought this was kind of interesting. So where did you see the biggest difference of opinion? And it wasn't huge, actually, you guys. The great thing that I thought out of this study is that they are actually looking at it from the same lens. They're seeing it that the same problems potentially exist, but the small places of difference was in company brand. So sales, you had 26% of sales leaders say, I feel like company brand's a big problem. And then you had 21% of marketing leaders say, I don't see that to be a big problem. And then on the flip side, where marketing kind of won out, they said, I don't see a problem, I see a bigger problem with the budget that we basically have available. And obviously sales said, I don't really care about the marketing budget. And so you saw a pretty difference of opinion there. But I know, having worked with a lot of sales leaders, brand is a place that I feel like oftentimes they feel like they get knocked in the market. And sometimes marketing leaders don't feel like they don't understand that kind of realm. Let's jump to the next one. Adoption. So what actual marketing strategies are most adopted in the market? Jeff, I'm going to put you on the spot again here. Oh, my goodness. I think I just showed it to you. If you think about all the different lead generation methodologies out there, what do you think is the most popular? Is there something that comes to mind where every company's do it, it's just kind of table stakes?
Well, you have a lot of different selections. I would say there's got to be something from a digital perspective around email, webinars from a value perspective. A little humorous one is the airport ads. They always seem to be popular with sales guys. They love the airport ads, although not sure how that how you can reflect that back to actual
return
metrics,
on that. The return on that.
Those would be my quick answers.
I want to throw it to the audience as well. So, audience, go to your Q&A. Tell us real quick what you think the most adopted marketing strategies or tactics are. And again, Jeff nailed it on the head. Things like webinars, things like print ads, things like online spend, events, trade shows, websites, etc. So we got John. Yeah, and Justin, I want to get your opinion while some of these guys pop in. What's your thought on most popular marketing strategies?
I think from top of the segment, the enterprise segment, all the way down to the very end of the small business segment, it's probably be digital, the website, attracting people, converting those people to your site into leads. So your bona fide inbound marketing approach, I would probably think is number one.
I had a feeling you were going to say that coming from HubSpot, so I'll give you that one. Let's see what the audience kind of put here. You've got a lot of people saying, so Raphael, blog, Stephen, trade shows, Ken, websites, search engine, online, email, a lot of website, a couple people, Ted put in social media, Karen, mobile apps. So it was actually pretty resounding. I mean, most people went with the website, I think, is the standard, the most adopted. That's where sales and marketing leaders agreed. Email, Jeff, to your point, was number two. That one, number three, I was thinking, I had to actually double check that twice. I'd be interested in the audience if you guys feel you were a little surprised that LinkedIn was something that, generally speaking, was a very adopted, a highly adopted method, marketing method. I mean, does that sound surprising to you, Jeff? And then I want to get Justin. I mean, LinkedIn made kind of the top of the list. Again, you got a whole list of online, video, social, digital. LinkedIn?
Well, LinkedIn has become, as it's grown in popularity and in its effectiveness to generate from a demand perspective, that one, you get the ability to capture some very targeted audiences from a LinkedIn perspective. So you get some flexibility to be very specific with that. So that one, that's a little bit of a surprise, but one that will keep, I think, moving up as time goes on.
And Justin, I assume for you, I mean, LinkedIn isn't as much of a surprise on the sales side. I mean, that's kind of the bread and butter of. I mean, that's become such a big play in the prospecting space that it is almost a must-have. Is that right?
Yeah, I would definitely put that in the top three in terms of tools that we would use on the sales side. I am surprised to see the marketing. I know there's a lot that LinkedIn allows marketing teams to do in there to be targeted around, ads and things like that. But I was really, really surprised to see it be so strong, which is great.
I mean, it just shows you how. Right. I mean, I feel like in Facebook, Jeff, you can do a lot of targeting, a lot of really honing in. But I didn't think LinkedIn was as powerful. But I'm seeing a lot of that. I'd be interested with some of the audience. So David is not surprised. Karen, not surprised. Bill, surprised. David, are you more on the sales side or on the marketing side? Because I'm interested to hear more if the marketers are surprised. Sales, I'm not too surprised, but marketing, I am just a little bit. That's your options on product. Okay, good. Oh, David is from sales. Yeah, so David, that does make a little more sense. Again, if any marketers out there, I'd be interested to hear if you guys were surprised because it feels a little different for marketing. It looks like Mike, not a bit surprised. We use it. Yeah, interesting, you guys. Okay, let's continue on. So another couple points here. I just wanted to mention 93% of sales and marketing leaders who currently use inside sales say they will continue using it. Inside sales came up not super duper high on certain categories, but from an adoption standpoint, a lot of people saying this is something that you have to have if you're going to be talking about lead generation pipeline management, which we'll get into a little bit more in just a minute. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of stuff on LinkedIn here. Timothy, yeah, Sales Navigator, you basically have to have it. Agree 100%. You're right, Miguel. I mean, there's now 500. Miguel says there's 500 million people on LinkedIn, so you probably need to be using it more. I need to get with the program. So let's think about a disagreement on adoption for a minute. These are the places where they differed the most. So I wanted to highlight this because this came a little bit just from what we talked about. So you see that sales actually was the group trying to push forward LinkedIn more. Again, it's not crazy, and these are smaller numbers, but this was the difference that they disagreed on LinkedIn. And then paid media was where marketing and sales didn't quite see eye to eye. So marketing said, hey, this is something that's very highly adopted. And sales said, I don't know if it's that highly adopted. I don't know if I care about it that much. One other point to mention on this that I think is interesting. Well, you know what? I want to skip that and potentially come back to it. Let's go into brand awareness for a minute because we looked at three kind of key areas here. The brand awareness, lead generation, and then pipeline management. And we wanted to see what people are using and what they're finding effective. So this was surprising. Again, guys, I'm putting you on the spot, and I want the audience to answer as I ask these guys. Justin, let's start with you. Brand awareness. What methodologies do you feel like are most effective to actually generate brand awareness?
Well, if you look at it from a sales perspective and a marketing perspective, I'll start with marketing. I mean, your brand, to me, is when someone goes to your website, what are you all about? Like, what are you trying to tell people? What value can you bring people? I think, to me, like the websites are one-stop or first-stop shop about your brand because everyone hits it this day and age, and most people do a lot of research before they'll even talk to you on the sales side. So to me, that's where marketing brand awareness comes in. I think where sales maybe has an issue with this is if their message maybe doesn't align to what the marketing message is. I've seen that happen to where the rep's out telling a customer one thing and the marketing message says a little bit something different. So there's some misalignment there. Or the sales team just doesn't feel like they're supported from a marketing perspective around content or anything else to help go deliver their brand to market, maybe for a smaller up-and-coming company to where you don't have any brand awareness. So, I mean, I don't know if they agree on that necessarily, but that's where I've seen some common issues occur between both sides.
Interesting. You know, we're getting some interesting responses from the audience here. So Mike, testimonials, kind of the website idea. Dana brought in the trade shows. That was an interesting one, and I do believe that pops up here in just a minute. Evan went with the HubSpot. We got some HubSpot lovers out there. Inbound marketing, sponsorships, websites, emails. Survey actually said, now this one was a little bit interesting because and I probably should have qualified this a little bit more, but when thinking about generating high quality brand awareness. Now, this isn't potentially mass, and that's a differentiation, I think, but small executive events is what both sales and marketing put down as the best way to generate high quality brand awareness. The thing is, that seems like such a small potentially interaction, but it's very high touch. Jeff, do you have thoughts on I mean, that's a pretty high number. I know it's effective, but with brand awareness, you often think of more kind of volume plays, I think, than you do kind of these intimate, detailed ideas. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the value that you get from those small executive events is it really provides you an opportunity to relay a strong brand message at a targeted audience, because you're focused on that small number from a audience perspective. The other thing it allows you to do, Gabe, is I think everyone has to take on the ownership of being a brand ambassador. So it's not just the marketers, it's not just the sales, it's everyone in the company has to understand what that, to Justin's point from a web perspective, what that message is and what your brand is as a company, and then be able to communicate and effectively demonstrate that message and that brand to prospects and customers. And small executive events, because of the focus and the ability that you have to be very particular with a targeted audience, I think that gives you a perfect opportunity to communicate that message.
Yeah, good. So we got some good questions coming in. Heidi, Nikki, let's see if we can get to these because I think they dovetail off of this. So, and then we got David. So is this B2B or is this B2C data? These were B2B, so I think that is a good clarification. These were B2B sales and marketing leaders. You can see the breakdown in demographics at the bottom of the report if you want to download it. Heidi, good question here. Can you give an example of a small executive event? Like what does that actually mean? Jeff, you mind taking that?
Yeah, so the term small, I think, is probably where Heidi is wondering, what actually is small. Is it a 5 to 10, audience?
Sure.
Is it a 200 audience? But I think an idea would be from an enterprise perspective, focusing on enterprise, but having a very small event. I would categorize that with regards to, around a 10 number. 10 accounts in a room where you can really be targeted on a message and delivering that value proposition that you want to communicate. And I think with regards to a good example of that small, you've got, whether it's an executive roundtable or it is an opportunity to put a customer an existing customer in communication with prospects, so a kind of a peer-to-peer event that allows them to have that interaction and dialogue. That's where you can get some very good traction from a specific small event.
Interesting. Yeah, you actually answered Nikki. I think that's kind of the idea. Nikki says, can you provide some qualifiers around what is meant by small? And I do that. That's a little. I mean, I interpreted that more as something that's a little more intimate. Sometimes people will do events. We did an event, had 500, 1,000, 2,000, something that's a little more intimate, but I get that that's potentially a little bit subjective. Nikki then asked, can you also tell us a little bit about the size of companies, were these enterprise or SMB? We had a decent mix. I'm looking at it now. So you had 10% 5,000 and above. You had 20% 100 to 500, another 10% 500 to 2,000. And then you had 35-ish% under 100. So you had a little bit of a mix and match with people here in the survey. Nikki and Heidi, hopefully that answered your question. If not, hit us back. We're going to keep tracking along here. Just a couple more. So let's finish up brand awareness and then dive into lead generation. So some of the places that they disagreed, I thought this was kind of a random one. So the website, Justin, this came up where marketing did say, hey, I believe this is, this is kind of the most effective way to drive brand awareness. A website jumped up and sales had a little differing opinion. That was where they differed the most. Google Plus, though, I thought that was kind of interesting. Google Plus showed its face a couple times here where sales said, hey, I actually think this is something interesting, and marketing said, you guys are barking up the wrong tree. I don't want to dive too much of that into the moment as we need to keep moving on, but there may be one other place to jump into that. Lead generation, so that's brand awareness. Let's talk lead generation and pipeline because I think this is kind of where the fun starts to happen. So thinking about where we get the biggest bang for our buck on lead generation when it comes to marketing strategies. Justin, thoughts on this? Where do you think we can get the biggest biggest bang for our buck here? And audience, I want you guys to go ahead and shoot your answers in as Justin's talking.
Yeah, I think like if I look at it on both sides, I think from a sales perspective, and I'm not being biased here, I think most companies will see the most lift or demand generation out of their sales development or business development team, because that is their sole job every single day, to come in and create or spark that demand. So I'd have to, and I know marketing's typically aligned with that. They love BD or sales development because they're focused on their leads. All these leads they're creating, they hit the funnel, they hit these guys and they dial them away. So that would be my guess. Maybe it's a little biased.
No, I mean, I think that's there's some interesting potential interest there. I got to pull it back for 1 minute because I do think David asked a good question. David, I'm going to try to get to your question. We got some good people are saying here, Justin, cold calling, social media, blogs, Ken, RuPaul's saying targeted campaigns, inside sales, good website content. I was surprised at some of the agreement around the sales development or the inside sales function on some of these. I thought we would see more kind of website or content or inbound, but that definitely sprung its head up a few times. But before we look at that answer, I want to get to David's question. You know, he says, guys, help me understand why brand awareness is so freaking important here. I added the freaking, David, I hope you don't mind. I heard aspirations and relationship are most important. My fiance is a marketer, and we don't agree on branding. Jeff, maybe you could take a minute. I mean, I've struggled sometimes with branding myself, so I'm not going to answer this question. You know, sometimes I think when marketers go too far into the realm of like PR and branding, I want to kind of slap them on the hand and say, hey, let's get some leads here and kind of bring them back. But those two should work hand in hand often. Thoughts on David's question, Jeff?
Yeah, David, it is a good question, and if I'm understanding it right, I think the term that I use is air coverage or air cover, and that's where we have the ability to agree that whether you're a marketer or whether you're sales, the ability that you can have that air cover, and I think brand is a way that helps accelerate and improve that coverage model. So if we can have that air coverage, so if sales is out, whether they're doing some cold prospecting or they're at an event or whether it's a trade show or whatever the activity might be, if people can come up and say, I've heard this about you, or I've seen you, or yeah, that resonates with me, that has a tendency to make that conversation accelerate that much quicker. So the idea from an air cover, so you're not having to explain from a pure cold introduction, but there is some type of familiarity that's already taken place from those branding exercises and activities. That's probably what I would say is why brand awareness is so important. It helps accelerate the overall transaction of moving, through a lead to a qualified lead to an opportunity and down that pipeline, that demand waterfall.
Yeah.
Ted,
that's a good comment.
Gabe, if I can make a comment too. Please. Ted on the chat hit it spot on, so I wanted to bring it up. But you said think of Coca-Cola, like if you know their brand, you're kind of 80% of the way there. Like I couldn't agree with it more. People spend hours researching. Like for us, it's like point solutions. Who can help me increase my pipeline, help me close more pipeline? They research and research and research before they come in contact. So if your brand, from a marketing perspective, is misaligned to what anything else is, whether it's your website, it's your content, it's what your sales rep's telling people on calls, what your demo says of you, then people aren't going to trust you. So I think, and I've seen that happen, so I think that's where, to me, where brand comes in, is everyone aligned on the value that you can bring somebody. And it's shocking at how much of that is actually misaligned in places in certain companies.
Hey, Gabe, are you able to? Can you hear us? I lost communication with you.
Oh, sorry about that, you guys. I bumped down.
Right.
Let me jump back in. So I want to look at these results. And again, we actually looked at this in two different ways on lead generation, or we asked it in two different ways. We looked at it both from a quality standpoint as well as a quantity standpoint. What you're seeing here is quality. And again, quality came down to the same answer on the small executive events. They went with webinars and trade shows. What you're not seeing in this, and I don't know if it comes up later, so I want to mention it now, when it comes to high volume lead generation strategies, you had a company website, inside sales, and trade shows actually dominated the top three. So a little bit of a differing opinion when we want to talk about quality leads versus quantity leads. The disagreement side, you guys, on lead generation, this is, again, that darn Google Plus keeps coming up, and we see that website showed its face again, where we see a slight difference of opinion of what people feel like is the best way or the best methods to actually generate leads. Let's get to the last one here on pipeline management or pipeline creation. What methods are best to do that? Jeff, I'm going to ask you this question, and again, I'd like the audience to put their ideas on what methods generate the best pipeline. Where did sales and marketing agree? Jeff, to you.
Yeah, so that is a put me on the spot. So sales and marketing agreeing on pipeline creation.
Yeah, well, what are the best what are the best methods to generate pipeline?
So it's got to be related to the business, a business development team working hand in hand with a marketing, support to provide the right amount of qualified leads coming into those business development reps. But I would say one that they would agree on, whether it's the digital side of things or the field side of things, I would say a webinar. Again, going back to the tried and true methodologies of people providing, good contact information and spending quality time. From a webinar perspective, I think you still have some event aspect of the old traditional face-to-face that doesn't, especially in a B2B capacity. So those would be my two guesses, Gabe. But I'm interested to see the results.
Yeah, and I made sure. I want the audience to know that I made sure we didn't give these results to Justin and Jeff beforehand. So they are actually answering cold here. We wanted to make it a little more real, so they didn't cheat. But some interesting ideas from the audience. We got Mike mentioning a call center. Okay, I'll go with that, Mike. Not my favorite. It's Krista, inside sales development. Lad talking about email, digital. RuPaul talking about cold calling. Qualified leads working with cold calling. So this one was interesting. Sales development kind of won out the house again. 73% of both marketing sales lead, that's kind of where they combined and said, hey, this is what we believe is the most effective way to generate pipeline. That small executive events, you guys, just keeps sneaking up there on both high-quality brand, on all three, high-quality brand awareness, generating quality leads, not quantity of leads, but quality leads, and last but not least, generating pipeline. I mean, do you believe, Justin, that this is because there's a push to go more in general? People are wanting to get bigger deals. They're wanting to get into the enterprise, and they're finding that these types of high-touch personal interactions are just across the board better? Or what's the reason for that number two showing up everywhere?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it on the head there. I think and any company who wants to continue to grow eventually probably has to make a move to the enterprise. There's very select few that haven't and continue to grow. I also think this has a big reason to do with the recent kind of rebirth of account-based anything, whether it's marketing or selling. Usually when you're account-based, you're very, very targeted in who you're contacting, and then that allows you to do an event like this. You don't have to scramble and say, okay, who do we want to invite? You've already created a strategy to target those people. So, I mean, we're guilty of it here. Part of our account-based approach is to do hyper-local focused events to where, we have a dinner or, we bring in a partner or even a customer, to Jeff's point earlier, to talk about how we can provide value. So I think you're seeing that pop up because of such high focus on account-based marketing, account-based selling right now.
Yeah. No, I think there's something to that. Justin, maybe you can answer a couple of these follow-ups. You got Jeff, David. I probably should have actually alluded to this earlier, but there's kind of wondering, can you define or give a little bit of color as to what is a sales development team and how they actually play a role in building pipeline? For those of the audience that doesn't know, can you give us some quick color commentary on that, Justin?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to. And I could probably talk to you an hour about what it is and what we do, but very, very high level, the job of a sales development function is to create pipeline, plain and simple. The methods in which they create pipeline can differ. I'll give you an example. We have a few different methods we use here at Inside Sales, one being executing this account-based marketing strategy. Jeff's team creates this amazing campaign, and we take and we do the calls down and essentially execute the cadence on it. Another might be your just general cold calling target accounts or cold calling people that you think are worth talking to. That still is effective, and that's where a sales development team can come in and really help your sales organization out. I've heard a lot of sales leaders say, I want my sales team spending 80% of their time selling, really selling. So to have some people team your sales up to do demos, to actually sell, and can be very, very effective. So long story short, it's just creating pipeline for your sales team. That's what a sales development function is there to do.
Couple follow-ups on that, Justin. One that I'll take the time to do. Cameron, interesting question. He says, okay, I get it. And Cameron, I'm providing a little color to your question in case you're wondering. But he says, I get it. Okay, sales development is a great way to generate pipeline. There's kind of some different thoughts out there about owning that in-house or going outsourced to a specialty company that only does sales development, again, in kind of an outsourced model. Quick thoughts on in-house versus outsourced for what both sales and marketing are agreeing is potentially the most effective way to generate pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, I can take it a little bit, and Jeff can chime in if he wants. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. Like spinning up a sales development organization or strategy is not cheap. I mean, this is a sales role. It comes with probably a pretty competitive base salary if you want to go and get top talent on top of variable pay. So I'd say you'd really have to sit down. If you don't have any, think about how much one person, I guess, will cost you, and if you can get the return on that investment. And I think the key thing to look at when you're thinking about that is your value of a lead, and then especially your value of a customer. So if you have a high value of a lead and a high value of a deal or a customer, it just takes one or two of these, and you can probably afford someone. So that would be the way I would look at it. If you have a very high e-commerce, business and you sell $2, $3 things, you probably don't need anyone out there drumming up business for you. You probably want to focus that money on, creating a better digital presence to get more inbound. Yeah. So that's like an example. So really, to me, it comes down to the value of a lead or a value of a customer. And if it makes sense to you,
anything you'd add to that?
Then you could do it.
Yeah, I think Justin hit the nail on the head with that. I would throw in one observation that sometimes you can actually do a hybrid model. Based on what your circumstances are, you may have a need to, for a short period of time, expand your volume, and an outbound or an outsourced opportunity from a sales development could be something you would consider as well. But there's so many different variables that come in to that equation. You have to analyze your own situation and your budget and the cost, and then also the expected return. But I've seen both sides find success in different situations and programs.
I love it. In a hybrid model, it doesn't always have to be black or white. You could actually find a middle solution. Hopefully that answers your question, Cameron. So finalizing this last portion, you guys, again, some disagreements, but I want to get into this how section with the last 10 minutes we have here before we kind of wrap up. Again, if you have questions, keep them coming. Appreciate the interaction. So now that we've got we got a little bit of the why, so why did we even do this study or what's going on, a little bit of the results that we found. Want to finish up and see if we can't talk about how to apply or maybe a couple real nuggets as far as takeaway. Before I do that, Timothy, this is Good question. Let's see if we can get this out here. So Timothy does say, what about lead gen for a very small company that has a small sales team that does not have the resources for a business development team? So if I'm a smaller company, I don't have resources for a BD team, and that's a really important way to generate leads or pipeline. How do I get around that? Jeff, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think from a budget perspective, what Justin said earlier is applicable here. From a digital perspective, you've got to find ways for that lead development to take place without, keeping in mind the money aspect of it. So how can you increase your exposure from a social perspective? Where can you go to be most impactful from taking advantage of good customer references and taking that to a next level to generate interest to somehow get communication back into those web forms and into those websites that can then generate a lead. There are ways to do it. It takes a lot of work and a lot of creativity, but certainly it doesn't just because you have a little to no budget it doesn't mean that you can't be successful in generating quality leads and quantity from that perspective.
Yeah, you just got to switch that strategy potentially a little bit, and I do think the digital play, is going to have to really pick it up. Appreciate the thought. Interesting comment here from David. David said, he's got a situation. I think, David, you did talk about where you're more on the sales side, but he says, I'm basically looking for marketing books or resources that someone in sales could read to learn more about marketing or how to become a marketer or best practices in marketing based on his role and kind of what he's trying to do in his company. Maybe, I don't know if each of you, if you have a book or a recommended resource to become a better, or at least get a better understanding of market. And I think I wanted to highlight this because I do feel like this was one of the ideas of the study is we got to cross-pollinate. And I was actually going to get that in just a minute. We've got to have sales understand marketing better, and marketing obviously understand sales better if we're going to continue to align. But thoughts on resources for our friend David here. Maybe Justin, can we start with you? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm more of the sales book side kind of guy. I'm going to pass it over to Jeff.
Jeff, what Justin thinking of?
My favorite marketing book's the Inbound Marketing book by HubSpot. I think they're some of the best marketers on the planet, and then I'll pass it over to Jeff. I don't know how much it's going to help you in your situation, David, so I think you should probably listen to what Jeff has to say.
Thanks, Justin. So, David, I would actually go back to an answer that we saw earlier in the survey to LinkedIn. I would hit LinkedIn with regards to looking at different groups and different communities that you could join, and other social mediums as well. But you can find a wealth of information, a wealth of white papers or discussions that you can participate in and pose questions to those groups, and you'll be surprised at the good quality of information that you can put your arms around just from that kind of an interaction. So that's how I would answer that. I don't have a go-to, marketing book. There's thousands of those topics and titles out there, but I would keep it on the cheap and head from a LinkedIn and a group in a social perspective and see what you could find.
Yeah, I would probably say just briefly, man, I have loved this company called Digital Marketer. I feel like they're fast. They're awesome. They've got some great content they push out. That might be a good resource. A book I'm currently reading right now, a little bit about marketing. It's called Fascinate, Your 7 Triggers to Persuasion. I better not turn it on my Audible here, but you can hit us up later. I'm sure if I thought a little bit, I'm sure we could get some other ones. So if there are, David, feel free to hit us up again. Whew.
Gabe, two others I know of that I haven't read, so I can't personally plug them, but I know Seth Godin's got a really good book out there, and he does a lot of marketing speak. It's called Permission Marketing. The reason it's really important right now for all you marketers out there is you need to get your message in front of people and you need to push it, but many people think that's spam. They don't want to see it. So Seth kind of talks about how you get around that. And I know people are big fans of guerrilla marketing too. So those are just 2 other books you could look into, see if it makes sense.
Got it. Got it. So, Nikki, that book again is Fascinate Your 7 Triggers to Persuasion. Mike did a great one. I think he's right. Blue Ocean Strategy is a great one. Thank you, Mike. If anyone else in the audience has recommendations for David to kind of pick up those basic marketing skills, go ahead and shoot them, and David, we'll make sure we wrap back to that. So,
hey, Gabe, one more that just popped in.
Please.
Marketing Sherpa is a good community
great.
that has all kind of good data and information.
Love it. I love it. Okay, guys, so if you want to bring kind of the sales and marketing teams together, as you're seeing indicated here, I think as we were just hitting on it, we've got to start looking at this as the same team rather than the different team. I love the sports analogies because they bring this to so much to fruition. You know, if you're on a soccer team, you know, if the team ends up losing, you never hear the goalie bragging about making 14 stops or 10 stops during the game. We win as a team, we lose as a team, and one of the main ways to do that is to start thinking about common metrics that we can align on. You know, for sales, it's not just closed deals, and marketing, it's just not leads. What are some of the metrics we can align on? And I love this idea, and the study kind of brought it out around pipeline, around these opportunities where marketing is potentially producing and sales development is helping, and sales. There's kind of this crux in the sales process where you can find some alignment. And so I wanted to, as we think about takeaways, just focus on this one just for a minute and highlight a couple things. So we put this in a graph. My eyes, I don't know if I can even see that, you guys. A little bit small on my screen, but what you're basically seeing on the y-axis is the effectiveness in building pipeline, and the x-axis is adoption, and you're seeing the red, yellow, and green basically highlighting pipeline effectiveness. Now, the interesting thing here is, look at that top row. That's kind of where we want to hone in on. Sales and marketing leaders, what were they thinking is most effective in generating pipeline? But I want to give you one more view, just honing in on this area that says, okay, what are the most effective options for generating pipeline that are relatively lowly adopted, basically meaning an area of opportunity. A lot of organizations under that 50% mark, they're maybe not adopting these methodologies or these strategies, but all sales and marketing leaders did recommend and say, hey, these are the things you need to be doing. And we've actually touched on these a little bit, so this does kind of fit well into the conversation. It comes down to that sales development function, and then again, these small marketing events. Again, both very highly effective, but relatively low in adoption. And so in the last couple minutes here, I want to give both Justin and Jeff a chance to talk about this. Justin, maybe you can start. It's a relatively low adopted. It's highly effective. How can people start thinking about building a successful sales development team?
Yeah, it's a pretty loaded question, but I'll try to keep it really high level or macro level. If you determine that this is a good fit for your business or your sales organization, I think you want to think of it in 3 ways. To me, I look at how can I attract good people into this position? How do I retain those people? And then essentially, I think the best sales organizations view their sales development team or business development team as like the farm league or a talent pool for their sales organization. So if you can, and I think that's where actually the longest value of this comes, not the short-term value of creating pipeline, but to grow people and have them become part of your company and take on more responsibility and more leadership. This is a great like initial first entry-level type job for people. So you have to go out in the market and you have to compete for talent. Believe it or not, there are a lot of people out there because this is becoming more and more in the curriculum in school, college grads that want to do sales. So that's where I would start. That's going to be your lowest cost person to get, and they're very, very talented people. So I'd get out in your local community and start looking for that talent in schools. From there, you have to retain talent, and that's really around setting appropriate goals. You have to understand how they're going to deliver value to your company, how they're going to deliver ROI based on what you're paying them, and then set appropriate goals around that. That's very high level, and there's a lot to that, but high level, you have to think about that. And then finally, you need to grow them. Millennials will jump around if they're not getting value from the work they're putting in, if they're not feeling valued, or if they're not growing professionally or personally in your company. They'll take off. So you have to have a good career path for them. You have to have a good training and enablement plan for them so they're always growing, and then they'll stick around. So super, super high level because it's very, very loaded. That's how I would start thinking about not only how to start one, but how to retain one and how to grow a sales development team.
Great. No, I love it. I especially like the emphasis on the people side of things. I think sometimes people jump to more of the shiny objects, what are maybe the tools they need, but you got to get good processes, you got to get good people, you got to get good systems, all important stuff for
I've been doing this 10 years, and I've had a lot of different technology and a lot of different strategies, but you're only going to go as far as your people. You really are. So you can hire really good people. The rest will fall into place. And you can read about all the rest. Yep.
So, Jeff, we got a question here from Heidi again coming in. She says, does it matter that marketing reports to an organization? Now, she does say marketing. Does it matter that marketing reports to an organization outside of sales for developing a good partnership, or does it not matter? I mean, does marketing need to actually report kind of into the same function, or can you have them separate and still have a good partnership?
You can have them separate and still have a partnership, and that goes back to the relationships and understanding the common goals that you want to work towards, working together. At the end of the day, depending on the size of the organization, they may eventually branch up to us like a president or a chief operating officer or something like that. But the real value and the interaction of those relationships will take place at a rep to rep, from a marketing rep to a sales rep perspective. So it's more about the relationship and the working together on agreeing on what those common goals and objectives are, and then working together to achieve those versus where the actual reporting structure takes place.
I love it. All right, Jeff, we're going to kind of close this out with you thinking about successful events or examples of these kind of executive, more intimate events, just so people can kind of visualize or start to think about how they could apply some of these strategies or methods within their own business.
Yeah, those little executive events or small executive events have been kind of top of mind for this whole session. A couple of thoughts. I would initially work real close with your development teammates, your sales teammates, to focus in or to create a target list. Let's have that understanding right up front. What are the right people, the right accounts that you want at this event? So agree upon that with regards to who you're going to go after. So, and then focus on those core. If anything else comes in, you'll take it. But that's a first step that is very important. Second, what I would, since it is a small event, you're going to have to do some homework, but you want to make sure that message is on target to that audience. And whether it's a single account or accounts within the same vertical, or whatever their commonalities are, do that homework and understand what those concerns and needs and issues are that those audience members are looking to help get information on, and be on target with that message. And finally, I think one of the best things that come out of a small executive event is the follow-up. You have the option to really be personal in that, personalize those follow-ups. So whether that is a phone call from an executive, or a direct mail piece, or just make it a little bit more meaningful than the standard "thank you for attending" email that we all get after those types of events. Be effective with that follow-up, because that will be important in leading to the next step in a demand generation cycle.
Awesome. Well, that's a wrap, you guys. Fantastic. Really good dialogue. Really appreciate the conversation. Heidi, Genevieve, David, Bill, Mike, some great questions, you guys. Really appreciate you making this interactive and getting to some of the things you guys feel are more important. So if you haven't already, it is in your downloads option here. If you don't see it there, go to insidesales.com/research, and you can download this report. It's a little bit long. It's about 30 pages, but it's got a lot more that we did not cover today. We tried to just skim over the top and hit some of the key items, obviously get some takeaways. If you want to check it out, you can. We've got a fun thing we're doing with our sales engineer and sales team. If you want to participate in this sales acceleration assessment, talk to an inside sales representative. We'll actually measure or assess the strength of your inside sales team and see if we can't figure out where you are on some of these important things that we've talked about today. And last but not least, I'd hate myself if I didn't say it. If you've got a sales development team, if you're thinking about developing an inside sales team to generate pipeline and you're not using the InsideSales.com Playbooks product that allows you to find some target accounts, get those right contacts, maximize your cadence strategy, and educate and get in contact with your target prospects, you're missing out. So with that, I want to thank again Jeff so much for participating. Justin, we will be offended if you do not add us on LinkedIn and continue the conversation. But with that, everybody, have a fantastic day.